This week on Streaming Star Wars with Emo and Fletzer, we talk about the implications of the Darksaber's return, who owned it before, and a little about its history.
This was one of a kind. Legend tells that it was created over 1,000 years ago by Tar Vizsla.
Happy Friday! It is Ammo and Fletzer with you on a Friday night streaming Star Wars Episode 10. Glad to be with you for another installment of our show, and of course another hour-long of fun adventures where we're talking about anything and everything. As long as it's on Disney Plus and it's Star Wars related, it's fair game. I'm Ammo, he's Fletzer. Did I point the right direction? No, I always... Pete, you're over here. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you? Did I point the? Yes, I did. I pointed the right direction. I'm great, man. How are you doing?
You know, as I mention every week, before, during, and after the show, the main show, I explain that you can watch us live when we go live on the YouTube channel, but you can also listen on the podcast. And I just feel like the audio listening audience has to just hate me the first 37 seconds of every episode because I make the same bad joke, and it's not even intentional. Like, you would think at this point that I would know that, like, my left is the right, and I don't, because I don't do this reverse stuff professionally. I'm not a meteorologist, okay? I'm a newsreader. That's what I do. No, really excited to be diving into the history, the lore of the Darksaber. This is something that came up as a result of the fact that we saw Moff Gideon ignite the Darksaber at the end of the final chapter, the finale of The Mandalorian. And Pete, I think it's interesting. I want you to explain this because the Clone Wars wasn't something that you had a lot of familiarity with. And of course, we know that it's the Clone Wars and Rebel series that have done the most exploration in current canon with the Darksaber. There's also a Darth Maul comic. But for the next hour, we're just going to sift our way through the 6 or 7 episodes of Clone Wars that dealt with the Darksaber and dealt with Mandalorian culture. Pete, what was it like for you to go back and watch these chapters? I'm assuming some of these episodes you watched for the very first time.
Yeah. So as you pointed out, I wasn't a huge Clone Wars watcher. I'm not going to say fan. It's just simply a watcher. I did not watch. I didn't watch it when it first hit. I got a little bit caught up, and as I was starting to get caught up, it went off of Netflix in favor of Disney Plus, which was coming. So it put a screaming halt on my viewing, but it was great because I knew that we were going to have this conversation, especially after the end of the last episode of Mandalorian. So I went back and I started digging in, and I started watching. I went to the list that I think you had posted, and went. I watched every one of those Clone Wars episodes. In fact, if I'm being honest, I just finished them up. The Clone Wars Darksaber episodes literally like 40 minutes ago before we went on the air because, well, I just didn't have the time. And I have to say two main things. Number one, kicking myself for not having watched Clone Wars and made it a priority. Second of all, what great stories. You know, it's funny. I think I said, and I was listening to our episode a week or two ago when I was prepping it to put up onto the podcast stream, and I said something to the effect of, well, you know, I thought Rebels was better Star Wars storytelling. I may have overspoken there. Rebels was great Star Wars storytelling, but Clone Wars is as good, or I can't say better yet because I haven't watched the whole series. But I certainly, it's amazing Star Wars. It really is fantastic Star Wars top to bottom. And I only watched 7 episodes over the last day and a half.
No, that's really impressive, and I'm so excited that you got to watch these episodes because not that there's like I don't look at it like a big age gap between us, but I've told you the story that Clone Wars is what got me through high school and college, the very early parts of college, and so I grew, as I was going through that big maturity period in my life, this show was also maturing with me, and some of my favorite Star Wars moments are in this show. Kind of curious though. You know a lot more about, of course, you know a lot more about Rebels. You watched Rebels series. How does the Clone Wars animation compared to Rebels or compared to the Resistance or Forces of Destiny? How does it compare to you? Because a lot of the early critics did not care for the animation style of Clone Wars. I happen to love it.
Yeah, I don't love it. I think look, it's cool. It's a style, and what speaks very highly of the show is the fact that I don't get hung up on the style. Whereas with Resistance, quite frankly, I watch 10 minutes into it, and I can't get by that animation style. And it's a great animation style if that's your thing. What I'm not sure if you're familiar with, and I actually knew this going into it, George Lucas wanted to create the look of the Clone Wars cartoon to look very much like I think it was, I want to call it the Eagles, or there was some sort of and I'm screwing it up and I should be able to find it real quick, or somebody in the chat probably knows, but there was a marionette science fiction show from the 60s that he modeled the look of those characters after. And if you look at the animation style and the design of the characters in Clone Wars, they do look like painted wooden mannequins in many cases, or marionettes rather. And it's a little off-putting at first, but as I was just saying, I think it speaks volumes about the story of Clone Wars, because you very quickly look past that. You look past sort of the slightly over the top kind of movement and whatnot. It's no Star Wars animation other than the animation that appears as special effects in the films really looks realistic, but it still tells the story really well. I do prefer the Rebel style, and I know that that's definitely sacrilege, but I do like the Rebel style the most of the 3 animated series.
So, based on what I just looked at here, Pete, I think the show you're talking about is Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds. Damn it. Yes. Thank you. Very good.
Hey, we're a team, okay, Pete? This is what happens when you watch Streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer. It's not Ammo and a little bit of Fletzer. It's not Ammo and Fletzer and Ammo's shadow. This is Ammo and Fletzer. We're equals.
It's not Ammo or Fletzer. It's Ammo and Fletzer.
Ammo with the side of Fletzer.
Or Fletzer with a side of Ammo, depending on who's rambling the most this evening.
You know what? Who knows? It's kind of a draw. I'm really excited to dive into this, and for someone who knows absolutely nothing about the Darksaber, I think that this is going to be a really interesting and educational conversation. For those of you who know a lot, well, I guess you're just waiting for us to say something wrong so you can prove your intelligence, and that's fine too. I actually welcome that. I think it's always fun to get called out, because then it humbles me a little bit, and then I go to myself, you know what? I'm not a perfect person. I was about actually just to start singing this song from Hoobastank. It's a great song. Don't tell me it's not. But no, it's just, then I just tell myself, it's just Star Wars. It's like, I love this thing, but then I get it wrong. I get called out on the internet, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really care.
But the point you were making before I started rambling about the animation style, it is interesting because, and it's a point that I've made multiple times, is on Around the Galaxy as well as here is, and actually anybody who will listen, because not only do I talk about Star Wars here and on Twitter and online, I'll talk to strangers on the street. It's an issue. It's a problem.
You talk about Star Wars in your sleep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure.
Your wife would like you to talk about Star Wars less.
Right, probably kick me out of bed. Stop rambling on about.
Okay, you don't need to take us behind the shoots here. This is...
Yeah, okay, I'll stop there. But
I mean, listen, we want to keep the adult status on the show, but
I do have a point somewhere. The point is that what's great about Star Wars is there literally are dozens of doors to enter. Like I've said before, my son loves the look of Resistance, but now he's a Clone Wars fan. I think I was telling you, but just before we got online, he watched the shows with me, and he told me that I'm not allowed to watch any more Clone Wars without him. He wants to watch it with me. So, and honestly, I couldn't be happier and more excited that was his takeaway from it. But yeah, Clone Wars, and I have to say, I wasn't as excited as a lot of people were about Clone Wars 7 coming, but now I'm all in. Now I like, bring it now. I can't wait till February. It's weeks away. But I'm excited to see where it goes and more of it. And I'm also excited. Hey, look, I'm really kind of lucky. I have 6 seasons of Clone Wars to watch. Is almost brand new to me.
Absolutely. And so when you're in this dry spell as we wait for Clone Wars Season 7, Mandalorian Season 2 in the fall, whenever we get Kenobi, if Cassian Andor happens, plenty of stuff to go back and watch and gear up for all of that. And for the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to explore specifically the weapon of Tar Vizsla, the first and I believe the only Mandalorian Jedi. And we'll go through, the history of that Jedi and the blade itself, and we'll kind of work our way through. Maybe we should kind of go like timeline, and we'll just stay in the Clone Wars era. Pete and I, like we've said, we've watched those 7 episodes again. Got a few notes written down. We can go episode by episode, or we can kind of just do like a quick overview, and then we can go into the individual episodes. And what we learned is, Pete, we get some really interesting nuggets to introduce the Darksaber. And I'm thinking of the Mandalore plot being the first episode that we see. This is, I think it's like the 12th episode, season 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And we get some nice tidbits there. Then we just get to see it a lot. And then you get to season 5, and I guess Dave Filoni and friends were like, we're using the Darksaber as much as we can in the episodes that we can. We're gonna kill anyone who dies. We're gonna kill with the Darksaber. That's an over exaggeration. But no, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to go into this. Are you okay with that? Should we do just kind of like a introductory? This is what the Darksaber is, and this is how it was created, and then we'll just go episode to episode. We'll kind of hopscotch like that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get some of that background, and then let's pick it up when the where we picked it up in the Clone Wars.
I love when Pete tells me how to do my job. Okay, cool. So
I think I just basically said what you said. I felt obligated to say something.
No, it's okay. So what we've done is we've collected some images through the episodes, and I want to tell you this, that so we're going back to the days of the Old Republic here. That's where this story begins. Darksaber itself is kept at the Jedi Temple, and the assumption is it's the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, but that could be a false assumption. Maybe there was a Jedi Temple at one time on Mandalore, but I guess I'm led to believe that it is the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Maybe I'm making that up, but I think I'm pretty accurate.
I think that's right.
And of course, after the passing of its creator Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian ever inducted into the Jedi Order. Now, however, this weapon is taken back by Mandalorians of the House of Vizsla. And of course, Vizsla is a name that we hear of, a house, a family that we hear quite a bit in Star Wars, especially when you go back and watch Clone Wars and you watch the Rebels. You know, the Vizslas are mentioned because they're the ones that raid the Jedi Temple during the time of the Old Republic's fall. And so it's the descendants of House of Vizsla that use this weapon to kill a lot of Jedi over the years and to rule Mandalore. You know, and I think that it's interesting. You know, you have Pre-Vizsla tell Obi-Wan in the Mandalore plot, this lightsaber was stolen from your Jedi temple by my ancestors during the fall of the Old Republic, and since then, many Jedi have died upon its blade. Prepare yourself to join them. And Pete, I want to ask you right here, you know, when we watch the finale of The Mandalorian, you know, the comment is made there by the armorer. The Jedi were the long enemy of the Mandalorians. And I remember I said this on the show. I was like, you know what, I'm interested into what point in time she's really referring to, because, you know, I think of the Mandalorians as this great culture that was created in the Clone Wars. It's kind of medieval in some ways. And now this, going back and watching this episode, the memory is refreshed that the Mandalorians were critical in the fall of the Old Republic, and that they raided the temple. And to me, I think that really enhances my understanding of that last episode of The Mandalorian, and it better appreciates the fact that somehow or another, Moff Gideon got the Darksaber. Maybe I'm bringing this up for my own good, but Pete, was that I don't know if you want to call it exposition that Pre-Vizsla gives in that episode, did that help you in kind of getting a base understanding of where this weapon comes from and its role in Star Wars?
Yeah, and I just want to prepare everybody who's listening. I think that we are going to be rolling all over the place, because I'm about to roll a little bit outside of the intended plan there by bringing up not just what you just said there, but as I'm watching these Clone Wars episodes and seeing the Darksaber in action and thinking about it being in the hands of Moff Gideon, I'm watching it realizing this is a blade that has been in combat in the hands of Darth Maul. It has been in combat with Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's been in combat with the Emperor, with Palpatine,
Ahsoka.
From Maul, Ahsoka, and this weapon is amazing. And so that, to me, sort of also elevates the level, the power, the importance of Moff Gideon, because this weapon should not just be randomly falling into someone's hands. It has been around for thousands of years. Let's take that out for a second. Think about the last 50 years of known Star Wars history. it has been in contact with all the major players.
Oh yeah, and the fact that uh, I think that's a really good point, and I don't want to jump too ahead because of course I thought when the Darksaber was revealed in Rebels that was special, but again we're staying focused on the Clone Wars era. You know, you're right, and the fact that Maul comes into contact with this, and of course this is going to lead us up to kind of the finale of season 5 with Clone Wars. Something great had to have happened because for the saber ultimately to leave Maul one way and then to find Bo-Katan at the end of Rebels, I am just more and more curious if Bo-Katan has that blade. How does Moff Gideon get it? And I think that is one of the 3 main questions we want answered with Mandalorian season 2 when it drops
Yep.
in the fall. So going back to the Darksaber and how it kind of makes its way through time is the fact that the Mandalorian culture in Clone Wars, when we come to meet them in season 2, they are working in part with the Separatists. Pre Vizsla is communicating with Count Dooku, and it is the view of Pre Vizsla that by partnering with the Separatists, they will have the strength to overthrow the current rule of Mandalore, who is focused on pacifism, trying to keep peace. And Pre Vizsla wants to see Mandalore return to its warrior core and rule the galaxy and use fear. Which it's interesting that this viewpoint is very similar to the Emperor, to the Sith, to the dark side, and a similar approach to trying to rule the galaxy with fear. How does the Empire rule the galaxy? With fear, with numbers, with quantity, and the same kind of concept here. Pre Vizsla has dozens, maybe hundreds of believers here with his organization called Death Watch, which is this cult sect of Mandalorians that are hell-bent on, again, returning Mandalorian, the culture, Mandalore, the planet, to a more warlike order. And so I thought that was really interesting, and it's interesting also that when Maul comes into the mix, just how dependent Pre Vizsla feels like he is on the Separatists. Did you pick that up, Pete, in the fact that he thinks he's the one in charge and he's got this plan and he's using the Separatists, as a pawn. He's kind of slow connecting the dots. He's about to get manipulated by Maul. I'm jumping ahead here, but it's like his arrogance becomes his greatest weakness.
Yeah, which is funny because I think that's exactly what Maul was banking on, and it worked. And what I love about this too, again, is this was the first time I'm watching these episodes, and I became a big Maul fan as a result of Rebels, and now to go back and watch Maul in action in Clone Wars, I'm an even bigger fan because he is a manipulative. He's a very smart character who makes some bad mistakes based out of passion, right? Like, going. I won't go into his Rebels and with Kenobi, but his passion and passion. Maybe that's a theme of Star Wars, right? Is passion is leading to bad decisions. Everything, even at this point, he's doing is because he wants to get back at Kenobi, and it puts him in a bad spot. So. I'm not sure if I answered your question at all, but I think it's, but what it is it's watching how Maul and takes advantage of Pre Vizsla's passion and desire to take back over Mandalore. I think another question that I want to address tonight at some point is Death Watch and its role in the Mandalorian live action show, and how that Death Watch compares to what we saw in Clone Wars.
Now, I'm going to ask a stupid question here, but you mentioned the Mandalorian or you mentioned Death Watch and Mandalorian. I heard you say that, correct?
You did.
So was it confirmed that Death Watch is there in the Mandalorian? Because I don't remember that being confirmed.
I don't know if it's been specifically confirmed. Somebody in the chat will probably be able to tell us, but it was definitely the Death Watch logo on the arm of the Mandalorian that pulls Din out of the bunker. So when he's a child.
I did not catch that. That is very interesting. I'm embarrassed that I hadn't. Honestly, I'm not, because there's like 5,000 Easter eggs in every episode. But now that really is interesting, because when you consider Death Watch finding this young Mandalorian, making him a youngling or a foundling rather, and bringing him into the ranks, it's even more interesting how there's this ambiguity when it comes to the morality of the Mandalorian himself, because you think that he would just be an extremist like all these other Death Watch members. I mean, Death Watch, when you look at the organization, really it feels very much like a terrorist organization, and it's also an organization that's trying to create civil war with
Yes.
itself with itself and its planet to gain power. And I think learning how Death Watch could have continued through the Imperial reign, that would be very fascinating to uncover. You have Darth Maul, the leader of Death Watch, by the end of Clone Wars, or at least at the end of Season 5, or Season 6, rather. I'm really interested in Season 7, how it is approached. And I know that I'm kind of rushing ahead here, but we know that he duels Ahsoka Tano. And so I'm really excited. I think we're going to get a little bit more clarity, too, about this Darksaber and passing here in between, this Clone Wars era and then again through the original trilogy and eventually finding Bo-Katan and eventually finding Moff Gideon. Love that first episode, by the way. So the episodes that have the Darksaber either referenced or shown, actually used in this. You have the Mandalore plot here. I'm going to pull up the list here, see if I can pull this up. I'm not going to be able to pull it up maybe, but I can read them all off. We got the Mandalore plot. We have Voyage of Temptation. Also, it's the 13th episode in Season 2. You have Duchess of Mandalore, episode 14 in Season 2. A Friend in Need. This jumps to us to the 4th season of Clone Wars, and this is the 14th episode in Season 4. You have Eminence, which is in the 5th season. We're getting around 2013 if you need like a year in our world. In 2013 was Season 5. Shades of Reason, episode 15 in the 5th season. And, of course, The Lawless, which is the 16th episode that season, of course, featuring the death of Duchess Satine. And so when we get to that Clone Wars era, that first episode, I love that battle with Pre Vizsla and Obi-Wan Kenobi. We get the explanation of what the Darksaber is, where it came from, and obviously that Pre Vizsla is a strong individual and also a strong in warfare, strong as a leader. Also, he's part of this lineage, this Vizsla, this house of Vizsla. And I thought it was really cool to see that. And I remember the first time, Pete, that I got to see the Darksaber used in action. And I love the look of it. It has this blade. It's black. It's got like this white like lightning in it as well.
Yeah, I love the sound of it as well. It's like a higher pitch, sort of almost squeaky sound, and yeah.
I'm trying to figure out I love getting really analytic about it. Like, how does the Darksaber work? I don't think we really know that. Maybe we don't need to know that, but it looks like there's actually a blade with kyber around it. I'm not quite sure. Like, I'm not sure how that weapon is made and how it's differently made than how a traditional lightsaber is. Just really fascinating. Really fascinating. So we have the encounter with Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've talked about how the Separatists and Count Dooku are working with Vizsla, trying to take over Mandalore. We mentioned how Ahsoka has come in to touch the lightsaber, and I thought the fact that she is able to outduel Pre Vizsla at one point in this run just speaks to her ability. And also, I think this is about the time where Ahsoka with fans really began to click, because Ahsoka was starting to mature. I think a lot of viewers were maturing with her. And it's a badass scene, man. They're dueling. She's got the green saber, and it looks like she's got the yellow blade as well. And then she slashes his jetpack. And I don't know, the whole sequence went well. When you think of the best fights, and we haven't even gotten to the fact that Death Watch and Pre Vizsla, they find Darth Maul, they find Savage Opress near their camp on Zanbar. They're in space, they're like frozen in their ship, and they're recruited in, and very quick, like Maul is like, he wakes up and he's just like, what is going on? Who are these people? And he starts choking out the one girl. And it's very fascinating just how quick, like I mentioned before, it's very interesting to see just how fast Maul is able to take control, manipulate Pre Vizsla, and take control of the Mandalorians and start turning the Death Watch on Pre Vizsla. Because by the time we get to the end of we get to the end of this run, Pete, it's like half and half. You got Death Watch, and then you have the other half, led by Duchess Satine's sister, Kyrie or Kizri. I can't remember how to pronounce her name.
Yes.
But
it was
interesting.
Bo-Katan was part of Death Watch, and she turned when Maul came in, and then ended up helping Obi-Wan off the planet, which is a really interesting thing to watch. The way there was that sort of 50-50 split, and then it makes you wonder. I think that also then leads to what's that sort of that gray area, that sort of moral ambiguity that comes with being a Mandalorian at that point. So here's my thoughts on where it is and how it relates directly to the Mandalorian live action show. A couple things. One is it seems that, and what I got out of watching these Clone Wars episodes is the Mandalorians that we see in the current Mandalorian show have reverted back to whatever was sort of the impetus for Death Watch, the desire to go back to that warrior clan culture. Pre Vizsla was obviously using it to do it in a way that was a little bit more vicious, a little bit more negative. But for whatever reason, at some point now, this small group, which identifies themselves with Death Watch. Now, another point of that is, was it all Death Watch? Is that clan all Death Watch? Or was that a survivor of Death Watch and a survivor of another group and a survivor of another group? We have no idea what happened in this great purge that we've heard mentioned a number of times. But it is interesting to see that while there was the warrior culture and the devotion to Pre Vizsla, there was also this willingness to occasionally go outside of whatever the way was at that time.
No, I'm really into that, and I'm really into that idea that these Mandalorians, whether they're actually of houses of generations past or they're all foundlings, whatever they are, the fact that maybe the way is the occult. It's of Death Watch, and it's very strict, and it's very. I love that idea. I really do enjoy that. I'm blown away. I guess I'm still distracted by the fact that it was a Death Watch member that comes in and saves, and it makes total sense too, because the armor looks so familiar. And I got these images playing beside us while we're having our conversation. If you're watching on YouTube, whether that's on the live or you're watching us on the rewind, and wow, I never connected that. That is so cool. And here's a cool idea. And we haven't jumped into the live chat, so I want to do that real quick. JLS Comics, Jesse's in the house, Jesse Stillman, and he says, I'm hoping that Bo-Katan turns out to be armorer in The Mandalorian. I love that.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic. And I believe she was voiced by Katie Sackhoff. I think it's and that would be cool to see her play underneath the helmet there. Now I know that was a different person voicing the armor, I believe, right? So, but it would be great to. There's nothing that says they use the same voice and the same face. But I would love to see Bo-Katan in any sort of connection here. Another person, and we haven't touched the Rebels bit yet, so I won't go too much there. But I think it's very conceivable you could see Sabine, as she has held that sword as well. So, but here's an interesting thought, and I'm just throwing the outline out the window here.
Throw it out. Because see what sticks.
Yeah, it must be the Hudson baby bourbon talking, but
it must be nice to have money.
It's not money; it's gifts, man. I love if anybody wants to know what to send me, either send me Funko Pop action figures or bourbon, and I'm totally happy.
Okay, I'm going to correct you because a Funko Pop is not an action figure in my world, just so you know.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want to send whiskey to either Pete or I, if you want to send us a bottle of whiskey to drink on the show, we will put a mailing address for you, or you can email us directly at What is it? Streaming Star Wars at gmail.com. Is that the email?
That's the email that we never check. Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So we're gonna start checking it now because if you want to inquire about our address to send whiskey, by all means, we'll take handouts. And something that we didn't touch upon too, Pete. I think we alluded to it though. The only way the Darksaber passes along is the owner has to be dueled in combat and has to lose it in combat, which is where we get to in season 5. You have Darth Maul come in. He has now really taken ownership of part of Death Watch, and Bo-Katan, of course, like you mentioned, is kind of like leading the other half. Not so much leading at the point. Not until Pre Vizsla is killed that there's kind of like a real separation. And of course, the other separation, the other big moment would be the death of Duchess Satine at the blade of the Darksaber. But really interesting to see how that happens. Of course, when you see the duel with Kenobi and Pre Vizsla, and then you think of the duel with Ahsoka, but then just actually, those are just battles. When you actually get to see like the ritual of the duel between Pre Vizsla and Darth Maul, I thought that was really interesting, and also a testament to the show's choreography, how it's improved. The lightsaber battles in season 2 don't look nearly as cool as what you see in season 5 and 6.
Yeah, well, I mean the lightsaber battle between Maul, Savage, and the Emperor is
So good.
so amazing, so amazing. So
well, and also,
I really enjoyed it.
And also, I didn't even mention this, but it's like when the Emperor shows up to Mandalore, and Maul is there ruling on the throne, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead in the Clone Wars series.
And let's jump all over the place. Let's have some fun with this.
I just love this series so much. When Palpatine comes in there, kills Savage, and then beats down Maul, and I think the Emperor leaves, assuming that he killed Maul, but he doesn't. Maul, of course, continues on. But I guess that's officially when Darth Maul is dethroned, and he's just a Maul. Well, no, that kind of happened fairly earlier than that. But the point being is, that's the best fight in Clone Wars. If you want to see the best choreographed lightsaber duel, it's Palpatine cruising into Mandalore and whooping some Savage ass. Savage, also a perfume that Johnny Depp promotes. I think that's interesting. All right, so I'm going to do. We started in the live chat. I want to go in the live chat. Just welcome everybody with us. We got Mr. Rez, Nick Michael with us. Or I'm sorry, Melky with us. We got Rural Farm Boy, Charlie Skywalker. We've got Daniel's Hot Topics. We've got, who else do we have on this night? I keep seeing Pete Fletzer. I'm like, I want to. Pete Fletzer, he's on the show. I don't have to shout him out. We got Comics Misexplained and a few others that are chatting in the live chat right now. So we appreciate everyone who is making us part of their Friday night routine, hang out in the live chat. And, of course, you can always watch us on the Rewind on the YouTube channel. We try and go 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. What is that, 7 p.m. Pacific? I'm not good with
That'd be
time zones.
7 or 3 in the morning if you're in the UK and you want to, set your alarm.
That is insane. But if you're doing that in the UK, by all means, we appreciate you and we love you so much. And then, of course, if you like, if you prefer to listen to our show, you can always get us on the podcast stream. Just head over to Around the Galaxy, wherever you best listen to your podcast, and you'll find the latest and greatest episode of Streaming Star Wars that you can listen to on the car ride, or maybe when you get into bed, or don't listen to us in bed. I would prefer you.
I prefer you didn't do that.
You do not want to take this show and blend it with anything remotely involved with, near, or in the bed. That's how fetishes are created. We don't need to be part of that. So we're, but again, Pete, I'm sprinkling this adult humor into the show. Maybe no one else finds me funny. We got to make sure that we keep this adult, man, because I don't want us to get slapped as a kid's show. That would just be horrendous for the youth if YouTube decides to put some, what is it, Copa, Cabana. What is it? I don't know. Some policy saying we can't swear in front of kids. We don't want to abuse the youth. So help us stay adult friendly. All right. So a lot of people having a good time in the live chat. Charlie Skywalker drinking some wine. Charlie, let us know. I got a tangent here, Pete, while we take a little bit of a break, because we've kind of done our overline of the Darksaber in the Clone Wars era, a very concise. I say concise. That took us 30 minutes. It's all relative. So my boss, the person that hired me, got a new job, and so today was her last day. And so I was like,
Uh,
do I get her a gift? Like, how does I'm not sure. I don't want to be inappropriate or anything, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get her a gift. So last night after the last newscast, I clock out and I head over to the local liquor and spirit store, and I
Right.
got her a really nice bottle of Chianti, and
Oh, very nice.
it's one of my favorites. You can tell a real Chianti because it has the rooster on the back label. So I don't know, for anyone who likes wine or wants to get into wine, that's how you know. You gotta make sure you have the cock on the back of the bottle to make sure that it's legit.
Are you going for that adult rating again there?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Okay. So one more thing. This is another tangent. I was reminded about the Coke. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. The cork soaker bit from SNL. Have you ever seen this?
Yes, I have. It's very
He's sucking my cork, and I'm sucking his cork. And it's like, well, what does your mom do? Oh, she's sucking my cork all the time. It's like, God, like, I hate how like the Italian culture is just bastardized in media, but that is funny stuff. Like,
it was some good stuff.
my family's from the Piedmont region. That's wine country. But there's no cork sucking in my family. We don't do that. Cork soaking? I don't know. I'm trying. Let's get back to Star Wars talk. And Nick Moki, he goes, love it. I've got some shine. Oh my God, we got someone drinking moonshine.
Moonshine.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh. I had my cousin, he gave me this stuff. It was apparently 190 proof. I kid you not. This stuff, it was like rubbing alcohol, and I took a shot of it. I mean, it like lit the nostril hairs on fire. I almost, I gagged. I didn't vomit. I was supposed to, though. Supposedly anything over 175 is like deadly. But my God, woo! That stuff is strong, so more power to you. Yeah, like a lot of whiskey, a lot of wine drinkers in the live chat. Maybe we'll be more entertaining with alcohol. Your experience on streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer may be strongly enhanced by hops. Okay, so I don't know. 7 episodes, Pete, of The Mandalorian. We listed them earlier. Do you have a favorite of the 7?
Of the Darksaber episodes on Clone Wars?
Yeah, like if someone walks up to you on the street and it's like, "Hey, Pete Fletzer, I saw you on streaming Star Wars with Ammo and Fletzer."
That happens all the time.
Don't lie to people, okay? We're honest here, okay? But be honest, like, what is the episode that you'd be like, well, if you want to actually like see the Darksaber in action and you want to learn a little bit about the culture of Mandalore and the Mandalorians, you got to watch this episode first.
Yeah, I think to get it, that's what's so interesting about it is because it's 7 great directly connected episodes over 3 seasons. So it's kind of tough to say which one was best. I think the best action, of course, comes in The Lawless, which is the season 5 episode 16. But I liked the one where with Ahsoka trying to get involved as well. So I can't give a favorite. I'm sorry. I like them all. I think that the first 3 from season 2. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Mandalore plot, Voyage of Temptation, Duchess of Mandalore. Those are great episodes if you're an Obi-Wan fan, and really who isn't? There's a lot of people who call Obi-Wan the GOAT, and it was really cool to see Obi-Wan have that romantic interest, which is super cool and makes this is what is amazing about Clone Wars is Anakin. You never get this with any other characters in any of the other movies, and maybe one of the things that's missing from the sequel trilogies and the things that people are calling out as far as character development potentially in 7, 8, and 9 is you don't see this back stuff. But when you really go back and you look at Clone Wars and you understand Anakin a little bit more, because Anakin in those episodes picked up on Obi-Wan's relationship with Satine, while at the same time he's having this secret relationship with Padme, and it probably raises those questions in his head. So it was great from a story standpoint.
I'm right there with you, and I think A Friend in Need, to me, I think best displays like the ruthlessness of the Mandalorians, at least Death Watch, and this episode specifically. Okay, so what's going on here is you've got this village. Well, how about this? I'll just read the synopsis, and then we'll just go from there. So there's a peace conference between the Separatists and the Republic delegates. It's interrupted by Lux Bonteri, the son of the late Separatist senator, who involves Ahsoka in this dangerous search to find a justice of his mother's death. And it takes them to this village, and the Mandalorians are there, and they're trying to kill Ahsoka. They're trying to kill everybody, and they just torch this village. And I thought that was really interesting. It was also a nice way to get Ahsoka involved in this arc, because I really do think that these Mandalore episodes, it might be one of the overall strongest arcs. I think it's just the most consistent, where it's a balance of story, it's the background storytelling, it is that character development. Obi-Wan Kenobi, as you mentioned, you empathize with him far more. You understand that Obi-Wan might be one of the Jedi who has suffered more loss than any other Jedi. You're not when you strip away just the fact that his Padawan becomes Darth Vader, which we, depending on what your take is still the most, one of the more evil Sith. I mean, I don't know. If you put him next to Bane, you put him next to others, I don't even know if he's the most dangerous Sith, but he's one of the most dangerous beings in that, original trilogy era. But the fact that he has Satine die at the hand of Darth Maul, who he watched kill his master Qui-Gon Jinn, it is a full circle moment, kind of like how Maul alludes to in that conversation. It's really powerful, and overall, all these episodes really stack up nicely with each other. And also, I think that Mandalore is just a cool planet in the series to be on. It's weird, man. It's like domes, it's like globes, and then you go in, and there's buildings, vertical, and then they're like hanging down, and it's just all very well, beautifully developed. I would obviously, I think I go with Lawless. I think that as far as the actual Darksaber is concerned,
right?
Okay. You have to start in season 2. You have to start with the Mandalore plot, because that's where you get, the origins.
Yep.
Or you could go to Wikipedia and you could just read the origins of the saber, and then you can jump through those episodes. But yeah, I think I think that as you learn about the Darksaber, you're learning just as much about Obi-Wan Kenobi. You get a lot of insight into the Jedi Order and how the Jedi Council is operating at this time. The Jedi is, you're seeing the Jedi stretch thin. I think that's a pretty interesting aspect of this, and how they don't want to really interfere with Mandalore, because Mandalore is considered this neutral planet.
Yeah, it's interesting, and from if you apply Earth politics to it, a country that calls themselves neutral in a conflict gets attacked, you don't leave them to deal with it themselves. And so it's an interesting sort of morality play. But I think, as we think about, we are streaming Star Wars, and we're thinking about all of the Disney Plus opportunities, and you think about what we will see in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and it's whether it's Darksaber directly connected or not, and I would be highly dubious if it was, but the fact remains that we have seen through Clone Wars and through the films that Obi-Wan Kenobi has just lived the most painful life of anybody. Everybody that's been close to him has had some terrible tragedy befall them. And ultimately, that's, C-3PO said he was made to suffer, but I think perhaps he was talking about Obi-Wan, because every single step. And yeah, again, these were the first times I was really digging in and watching these episodes, and I knew Satine died, but it was still heartbreaking the way they delivered it on screen. It was still, I felt for Obi, in a way, one of the things I've always said about A New Hope is that of all the Star Wars films, it's the one that I can very consistently and easily kind of suspend disbelief. Every time Luke goes down the Death Star trench, in my mind, there's a chance he doesn't succeed, right? I've seen the movie 100 times, but it just works. And that was what was so impressive to me about that particular Clone Wars episode, was I knew it was coming. I knew which episode it was coming. I knew she was going to die, and I knew how it was going to happen, who was going to do it and how. And when it happened, it was just these animated figures brought that emotion right to the surface. It was fantastic. It was really, really well done. And that speaks to Filoni. That speaks to the direction, the writing, the character development, all great stuff.
Well, and only 100 times. I'm pretty sure I've watched A New Hope 1,000 times. I'm just going to be really honest with you. I'm just in love with watching these images that are playing next to us right now. Here's, the first episode, the Mandalore plot, where you have Kenobi and Pre Vizsla dueling, and now we jump to Maul and Pre Vizsla dueling there in season 5, of course, fighting for ownership a rule of Death Watch, and also here Maul will take the Darksaber and lead Death Watch. And what a badass shot that is! Oh my gosh, like that crackling. It's like the white is like corrupting the black blade. I don't know. There is something so magical about that. And as you've mentioned
There's
a few
Satine,
times,
yeah.
Satine lying in, or is it Lang? Lying in Obi-Wan's arms? Crazy. And then just the fact here that like Kenobi could have easily died here. Thank goodness Bo-Katan, starts flying around and blowing stuff up. But no, it's just one of my favorite stories to follow in Clone Wars, and that's why I was so excited when you and I were talking about, hey, how do we want to approach the show this week? We don't have, The Mandalorian, which is still strange for me. I'm still in the routine of waking up on Friday morning and being like, oh, new episode of Mandalorian. No, not yet.
Right.
Which,
Yep.
And maybe that's also because Clone Wars trained me to expect like 16 episodes a season, and so I'm thinking, oh, it's Star Wars TV. Like, let's go watch another episode. But to be able to explore this has been a lot of fun. Pete, is there anything at this point that I haven't mentioned or you haven't mentioned about this that you think is really important to touch upon? The Darksaber. We have a couple questions that connect the Darksaber from Clone Wars to the Mandalorian. We could just jump into that if you want to.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to do that before we get into Rebels, because I had an interesting thought, and I'd love to hear what you think on this. Now that we know that there was at least a Death Watch insignia on the patch on the shoulder of the Mandalorian that pulled Din out of the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
As you watch these 7 episodes and you watch how it all came together, or how the plot came together to create war on Mandalore, and then have Death Watch come out and appear as the heroes. What if, and I was trying to do the math in my head real quick. What if Din was on Mandalore when that was all going down, or someplace nearby, and Death Watch rescued him as part of this faux "we're the heroes" kind of moment, and that adds sort of a different level to. He wasn't necessarily rescued by the good guys, which is I think again adds more of that cool gray area to where the Mandalorian sits in this story.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool concept. And of course, we know that Din is rescued by Death Watch in The Mandalorian during the time of the Clone Wars, because we see the Super Destroyer droid there, right? We see the
Yep.
the droid starship, above, and it kind of gives us a place in the timeline. I guess that could work. I don't know if it could. I don't think that Din was actually on Mandalore, just
Yep.
because the aesthetic of the village.
Right.
But it would make the most sense for it to be, I don't know, maybe it's, Dooku getting revenge at, the Mandalorians for not joining the Separatist side, and they just decide to go on a complete mass killing spree.
Right.
Not genocide, but whatever the equivalent of an outsider coming in and wiping house would be. I think that's really interesting, the point that you made there. And I mean, I guess I'd be into. I have a strong feeling that that's what we're going to explore in season 2. I think there's 3 things that we're going to get. I think 1, you're going to get Moff Gideon, how he got the Darksaber.
Yeah.
I think 2, we're going to see a hut.
You think so?
I think so, and I think it's because we got that Gamorrean guard photo tweeted
Yeah.
out by Jon Favreau. It was also on his Instagram. But
Yep.
I have a strong inclination to feel like, and I think that you've made this point before, and I think I might have made this point too, if we're only 5 years past Return of the Jedi, it wasn't just Jabba the Hutt. Like, there was a lot of Hutts. We know that because of the Clone Wars.
Right.
You had
We saw that.
Zero, right? He was like,
Yep.
I guess, like the drag queen of the family. I don't know.
Well, we even saw Maul go and visit the Hutts on Nal Hutta, and
Yes.
then go to Tatooine.
So I'm really confident about that one. I'd say like 75%. Like, if you're doing like an over and under, I think that's
All
going to
right.
happen. But yeah, I think that's a very interesting take. I think your math math works there. But to just simply answer, because I kind of went off in a direction there. I don't think it's Mandalore, but if it was, obviously that would be cool. But I don't understand how he would be a foundling if he was on Mandalore. Like, I thought a foundling would be someone that's not
True.
on Mandalore and that they
Fair.
bring in. Because I'm assuming if you're on Mandalore, you're of a house of something already.
Yeah, and I think it may be, and this is just simply because of where the stories are coming together and where they're going to be shared and when. I think it's probably more likely that it happened during whatever this purge timing is that we're going to see. Hopefully, some of. Well, actually, we won't see any of it. We'll see the siege of Mandalore.
Well, here's the
but
theory.
we won't see the thing that happened after Rebels, which is what apparently knocked them all out or finished the job.
Maybe, but what if the Siege of Mandalore is where oh wait, no, math doesn't work. Dang it.
Yeah,
that
you're
would have been
thinking the
sweet.
same thing I am. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
because at some point we need to go from Mandalore being under, was Almec or whatever his name is rule, to this siege of Mandalore, which we'll see a season later in season 7.
Yeah.
To the rebellion and the Battle of Endor, and then sometime after the Battle of Endor, you got to imagine that's when it happened, or around the Battle of Endor or during it, because Sabine wasn't a part of it. But 5 years later, all the Mandalorians are gone, and we did see Mandalorians just before episode 4 of the canon series.
Well, right. And the attack of the Mandalorians too. Yeah, you see that part at the start of season 4 of Rebels. Yeah, I mean, it'd be super cool. Like but he's just not old enough, because if you go from season 7 of the Clone Wars, you've got to go. Well, wait. I mean, that's like what, 20 years, and then it's like another 10 years for the movies, and then it's another 5 to get there. I guess that would make him like 45, and I just don't think that Din is that old. Dang, that would have been so cool though. Like, if we would have watched season 7, and then somewhere in a battle, like in the background, you see a Mandalorian like shoot down a stormtrooper that was and he pulls out a kid and leaves. Like, that would have been like a really dope Easter egg. I just got excited there, but I should have known the math just didn't work out. I have a degree in broadcast journalism, and what that means is I suck at math. I'm not good at math, and if I have, like, let's say I've done a math problem and the answer is wrong, I keep trying to figure out why my answer is not right, instead of just accepting that it's wrong and doing it again. Like, I will keep going, well, no, I carried the 3, and then I divided by 27, and that's an odd number, so that doesn't even make sense. So yeah, that's my whole life. Let's go ahead and dive into the live chat, because I think that we're on kind of like the same mindset as those people joining us in the live chat. So does Ahsoka's involvement connection in these episodes give us our best potential shot to have her in live action in a Mandalorian season? This is from Nick Malky. And I'm going to say no. I think your best shot at having her in Mandalorian would be that you have Dave Filoni there involved, and that he, but again, at this time, she is with Sabine running around trying to find Ezra. And I'm curious, because there was a report that came out that said, yeah, there's going to be a spin-off series in development. It's going to be with Sabine. It's going to be with Ahsoka. They're looking for Thrawn and Ezra, and Filoni will be somewhat involved with this program. Not directly. He won't be directing it, but he might be executive producing, which, Pete, you and I both on the show last week were like, we don't like that idea so much.
Yeah, bring him in.
Like
all the way.
He needs to be a director. Which, okay, his new job title, he's kind of like the overlord of all animation or TV or whatever. So I get that might be tough for his schedule, but that makes me really nervous that he's not going to have direct hands-on with Ahsoka. But I think that's a really great question, Nick. And I would, of course, we'd love to see Ahsoka Tano in live action. Pete, if you see Ahsoka in live action, does she have to be played and voiced by Ashley Eckstein?
It's an unpopular answer, but no, I don't think so. I think Ashley is Ahsoka, and I think that's why we're unlikely to see her in live action. I guess it also depends on at what stage in her life we see her. Not that, Ashley is not an old woman. She's also not the young woman that we saw in Clone Wars or so. Does it need to be? I'm really taking a very weak response here and saying I don't think it has to be. I think it would be dangerous to the hardcore fans, or dangerous in that you could alienate the hardcore fans. Frankly, I would just love to see her do it because she just loves that character so much. But I think they would find a way for her to be associated with it somehow. Certainly.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I'm torn on it. You know what? You got 2 Han Solos now. You're gonna have more Luke Skywalker, and it's not gonna be Mark Hamill at some point. You're gonna have Leia, and it won't be Carrie. So
Yeah.
I'm not
And it's a makeup heavy situation too. So conceivably, I'm going to screw this up, but from what I understand, even in The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, when Carrie was still alive, they used a voiceover who wasn't Carrie Fisher on some of her lines, and so it can be done. You could very easily get Ashley to do the voice of whoever it is, especially if you get sort of a no name actress to do it. It wouldn't be jarring.
I don't know if you go no name though. I think you almost have to have someone that like really has that ability to channel what Ashley Eckstein has brought to the character. Like
Yeah.
the grace and the poise, but like the badassery, like that's a crazy blend. And I think Ashley could do it. She's done some like she's done TV and like on camera stuff before, but
Well,
yeah,
and
it's
if you're getting the older Ahsoka, and again, not that Ashley is old by any stretch, but she's not she's not Snips. She's older Ahsoka, the white kind of
Right.
situation. So I think she could play her in the Mandalorian live action if she's supposed to be in that same age range. Again, there's a lot of makeup in Ahsoka, so you could get her there.
And the other thing too, Pete, is the fact that this would be like really, like you've had characters in the past brought from Clone Wars to the on screen. I think of Saw Gerrera being the most commonly known at this point. Origins is in Clone Wars, brought to on screen for Rogue One.
Right.
But this is like Ahsoka will be the biggest character I think to ever be created in a cartoon and brought to live action. And yeah, you can't mess it up. You just can't mess it up. I'm going through the chat here. I love the conversation that was happening here in the live chat. This is pretty cool. Don't have time to watch tonight. Love the podcast. Also love seeing the Darksaber in live action. Tony Beedman stopping in and saying hi. That's awesome. Thanks, Tony. My history of the Clone Wars is similar to Pete. Never really watched it, then almost started using it like a reference point on various things, especially when it comes to Mortis. It's definitely grown on me. The Mortis arc. My gosh. Pete, let us know in the live chat. I hope it's okay for me to ask this, Pete, but I think we should just do a rewatch of the Clone Wars. I think that would be a lot of fun to do with you.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. We could, chunk them up between now and whenever the 7th happens or the season 7 happens. I'd love to do that. That'd be great.
I like this observation from Nick. The Darksaber unfurls in a way that's different than a lightsaber. It's almost like it unfolds as it comes out. Like it kind of like, you know what it kind of reminds me of? When it comes out, it kind of reminds me of those toy lightsabers you used to get in like Halloween costumes in the early 2000s. Like they still sell them where like the blades are like, it's in the hilt and then they come out in smaller sections until they form the point.
Right.
That's kind of how it slides out. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yep.
And I think the other observation here, Pete, and we just hit the hour mark on this show, so a great observation here. Maybe this is what we wrap up. I don't know with, but they reference the Night of 1,000 Tears.
Yep.
In the Mandalorian, is that connected to the Purge of Mandalore? Is that going back? Will we maybe see that in a flashback, or will we see that in the Clone Wars? I think season 7 is about to open up. Season 7 of the Clone Wars, that is. I think it's going to open up just so many more questions and give us so much more background when we come back and watch the season 2 of The Mandalorian. I think our knowledge of that time period and the pain that the Mandalorians went through, I think we're gonna be experts by the time we get there in the fall.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, I think it's going to be. I think the thing to remember is that Clone Wars takes place 30 years plus or minus before The Mandalorian starts. So the Siege of Mandalore, the Clone Wars stuff is more of a quote unquote history lesson. Rebels takes place 5 to 10 years before the Mandalorian, so that's when more of that action happens. We know that Sabine, in the interest of time, as you pointed out, we are at about an hour already. But at the end of the day, Sabine got the Darksaber from Maul's temple, and then returned it to Bo-Katan, who became the leader of Mandalore. After that, at some point sometime between just before the beginning of the Battle of Yavin and the the last episode of The Mandalorian, somebody, Moff Gideon, at least, if not others, got the Darksaber from Bo-Katan and now is in possession of it. The question is, to me, as we start to think about what the connections are to the entire saga, is there a connection between Moff Gideon trying to find the baby Yoda and in ownership of the Darksaber? Is there an Emperor connection, or is it purely a power connection? Is there? I think there's going to be a direct connection between that Darksaber and the baby Yoda, and the objective of who's ever pushing Moff Gideon. No, nobody in the Empire moves on their own, and those that do don't succeed.
That's an interesting point, but also I don't know why the Emperor would have a role in this. As far as the Darksaber is concerned, obviously maybe with the child, but I don't think anything to do with the Darksaber, because the Darksaber isn't like a relic of the Sith. I mean, this is a Jedi weapon.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of where I stand on that. But yeah, everyone wants to know, like, how does this weapon get from Bo-Katan at the end of Rebels to Moff Gideon? Bo's got to die. Or it's maybe a safe assumption that Moff Gideon killed her, but maybe I think there has to be more. There has to be someone else that comes in here and disrupts it. But maybe we're looking too much at how did Bo lose it. Maybe we need to look at more at how Moff Gideon got it. Who is Moff Gideon?
Yeah.
What's his background? Is he a foundling that knew about the Darksaber and he turned? Maybe he's a member of Death Watch that ended up joining the Empire.
See, that my theory is that Moff Gideon was a former Mandalorian, part of Death Watch potentially. I think about it this way too. The other thing that was dropped in the Mandalorian was that not only did Din know who he was, but so did Kara. So Kara knew that he was a part of ISB. Did Grief know who he was, or no? Grief was the one asking the questions.
Yeah, but Moff knew something about Gideon. Or I'm sorry.
About Grief.
Gideon knew something about Grief.
Yep. So there's a connection between the three of them somehow, and which tells you that the fact that he has the Darksaber tells you there's much more going on. But I think the fact that he had all that information, was an Imperial ISB officer. I think this tells you that this guy has a lot going on, and we're making the assumption that he got it directly from Bo-Katan, but there could have been a number of steps between her and him, and apparently Din is familiar with him as a person, or as a character in this series.
Bill Burr. It was Bill Burr. He left Boston. I'm making this up. But he left Boston, which sounds like a lot like Boston, and he sounds like a lot like he's from Boston. And he kills Bo-Katan, and and then he fails. He doesn't know which direction the blade comes out of, and so he kills himself. And then Moff Gideon happens to walk down the hallway and pick it up. Yeah, that's a terrible theory. Don't run with it, please don't. No, very interesting. Hey, by the way, shout out to Sir Nerdalot. First time checking out streaming Star Wars. Great stream. Love the Darksaber and its path through time, Sir. Nerdalot, thank you for joining us here on Streaming Star Wars. Rick Villanueva is joining us. He says hi. We talked about the Night of a Thousand Tears. Hope that we get to see that on screen. Really cool here to see everyone having a great visit. I think this was a good conversation to have. We got Frammy in the live chat too. A good conversation to have. And Pete, before we go, I think we kind of talked about. At times about Rebels, but what we could do is we could come back next week. We could talk more about the Darksaber and what we know in Rebels, and then we could also visit that Maul comic and then just kind of like do a part 2 of the Darksaber conversation. What do you think about that?
I think that would be great. It'll also give me some time to watch some of the surrounding episodes as well. I think we keep it we keep the conversation going because I think there is a ton in Rebels that was sort of let loose as well that we didn't even get a chance to talk about.
Yeah, I absolutely, and and it's hard because we don't want to. You can go watch the episodes. We don't need to tell you every play-by-play of each of the episodes, but we gave you the list of them so you can go watch them. We told you our favorite battles from them, the favorite nuggets of information from them. So you got a little sense of why we enjoyed these episodes, but definitely go out there and check them out. Yeah, Frammy's like, oh, Rebels, please, please, please watch that. So let's do that. Next week when we come back, we'll do part 2 of this conversation where we'll break down, the Darksaber and the Rebels era, and we'll take a look at the Maul, Son of Dathomir comic, and I think that'll be a really cool conversation.
I think it'd be great. I think I'm trying to look it up right here. It's just an idea. Here we are working on the fly here. We're just making stuff up as we go. I think if I'm just going to find the phone number, I have a phone number that you all can call if you want to leave us your theories and thoughts, and perhaps we can bring them into the show if that's the kind of thing you'd like us to do. I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that, there, Dave?
Like next week.
Like next week, yeah, not right now, and it wouldn't be live on the show. But if you leave us a message, we'll be able to pick it up.
Well, and something that we need to discuss too, Pete, and I don't mind our audience being part of this conversation as well. Is I might be out of town the next couple of weekends, so we will have a unique airtime for this show. I'm not quite sure how it's going to happen, but we're going to try and make it happen
for next week. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll make it work. Whatever we got to do, we got to do.
I have an idea, and we'll see if you like it, but you might not. You might not like it. There will be an episode.
I am pretty difficult to deal with, though. So
yeah,
there's a really good chance I'm not going to like it.
You're a real jerk. Hey, we want to remind everyone that you can always join us live on Beyond the Blast Doors. I on the YouTube channel. I bring this up because whether you watch us or whether you listen to us, I just want you to know, live show. We do it usually at night, Friday or Saturdays on Beyond the Blast Door YouTube channel. You can also get the audio version, the podcast version of this show. Just search Around the Galaxy on whatever platform you listen to podcasts best. That is always posted the day after the live show. You can always follow us on Twitter at StreamingSW. What should we know about Around the Galaxy coming up in the near future? You want to pitch your other show?
Sure. Yeah, we're gonna have an episode this Tuesday, which is our 49th episode, and it's with Heather Aston, who is a former Marvel story editor who worked on comic books like Vader and Poe Dameron, and we also talked to her about who she considers her baby, which is Dr. Aphra. So it's it was a fun show. Just happened to hook up with her on Twitter and just started a conversation that we decided to bring onto the pod, and that was a lot of fun. And then what we're trying to do is for the 50th episode, I'm trying to think of something fun and unique to do. So send us your favorite moments of Around the Galaxy, and we want to feature them on our special 50th show. But and David, I did find a phone number that I'm using for Around the Galaxy that if people are watching or listening now and they want to call us with their ideas or theories or even questions they want us to address, call us at 609-284-9861, 609-284-9861. It will go directly to a voicemail. You can leave us as long or short a message as you want with some thoughts and ideas.
And what theory again? What theory we were trying to get out of them?
Oh, any theories? Any thoughts on how the Darksaber is connected? Any thoughts on Din? We saw a bunch of people typing away in the chat. I'd love to give you the opportunity to kind of flesh those out. So go for that.
I like this idea. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm typing in the live chat I'm just posting the theory, but I posted the number in the live chat, and we'll also post that in the comments underneath this for the rewind. But a really cool idea, and I'm really excited to hear what people have to say in regards to that. Just big thanks to everyone who does listen to Beyond the Blast Doors on whatever device or however you listen to podcast. Beyond the Blast Doors just hit 3,000 downloads on the audio. So it's interesting. If I have a regret with Beyond the Blast Doors, it is the fact that we started as an audio podcast, and then I quickly went to YouTube, and I stopped doing the audio version, and I wish I would have kept that up because we had like 3,000 downloads then. So it's whatever. But really, I don't care about the numbers. I just care that people are enjoying the Star Wars conversation, and it's really cool to see especially our podcast numbers climbing and climbing. And so the goal right now is to have a show on Sunday morning as always, but that time I think is going to change. I'm also going to do kind of a studio change as well with how I do the show with David and Jesse. And so I'm really interested to see how that setup works. Because I think it's going to be a lot more. I think it's just going to be a lot more enjoyable for the viewer. I think it's going to be a lot less visually stagnant, as I could say. We have a lot of fun on Beyond the Blast Doors, and I give David and Jesse a lot of hell. Why? Because they're my friends, and so I hope you join us on that conversation. Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for giving me some of your Friday night. You do so reluctantly.
Same here, man.
You do so reluctantly, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
Well, we all make our choices in life, and no, in all seriousness, I love doing this. I look forward to this every week. The opportunity to get on and talk about Star Wars with you and the regulars, you guys who've joined us so many times, week to week. It's fills my heart with joy to see you guys every single week, and your engagement means so much to us. It's really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I want to shout out Josh Rowe real quick, or I think it's Joshua Rowe in the live chat. He's just joining the live stream. I really appreciate him being with us tonight, and a huge thanks for the support. I think tonight we hit somewhere close to 20 in the live audience tonight. We have 16 thumbs up. Just really appreciate everyone's support and joining us on this Friday night as we continue to grow this show. Every episode we get more people turning out to watch this, and please share this episode with your friends. It just means so much. Of course, the moment we go to end this episode, Scotty J-Ro joins the live show. This guy's bomb bad. He's no good. No good, Scotty.
Scotty, I saw your solo costume today. Nice job. Well done.
Does it look good?
Yeah, the guy is he's a born solo. I'm surprised they didn't pick him instead of Alden. It should have been him.
It should have been him. It should have been him. You know what? Episode 10 for Streaming Star Wars. It's been an absolute joy to spend this time with you. We look forward to another week of Star Wars stories and Star Wars news and Star Wars conversation. Remember, everyone gets an opinion. You get your own, they get their own. We don't tell each other that we're wrong. No, we just celebrate Star Wars live.